Hello, everyone. So I'm back here on the channel with Phoenix. Welcome back, Phoenix.
Thank you.
And today we have a topic that's very interesting, but I'd like for Phoenix to actually word it properly so that we can get off to the right foot. So, Phoenix, go ahead and explain what the topic is for today, as far as what we're going to be talking about in the video.
So, for today, we're going to be talking about spiritual practices, what to do if you fall off of them, and when I say spiritual practices, I mean daily, and how not to fall off of them. So, I'm going to go ahead and let you start like we planned, and then I'll go ahead and throw my input in.
Okay, so usually within the past 6 months, I have what I call a working shrine, where I do all of my rituals for the particular being that I'm working with at that time. And having a working shrine in a place that is very prominent within this room that I do a lot of my spiritual practice in actually keeps me from forgetting about it because it's always right there. And I'll go ahead and move the camera now to the working shrine to just kind of like give an idea of what I'm talking about after I unplug this. And what I'm talking about is something like this. So I have Odin right now in the working shrine. I have a candle that I will anoint with blood once more. I already burned out one, and I also have a chalice. And then I have my ritual knife, of course. I have some piercing needles, and I have some paper that I'm writing on when I free write with Odin. And of course, some dragon's blood incense and a little bowl that I keep the ash from the dragon's blood in, as well as the sigil of protection that I burned as the base that I add the ash to, and then I have the spiritual oil that I anoint Odin's head with, and my own head, drawing whatever rune I feel needs to be prominent in the working at that time. And when I draw a rune, go ahead and move back. Okay, so when I draw a rune, I have a rune set that I actually made myself. Like I said, I cut down the branch, I cut it into pieces, and then I carved and then burned the runes into every single rune into this. Then I anointed all the runes with my own blood to make them that much more powerful, and then painted them. So if I drew a rune for a particular day, and then that's kind of how I start my free writing, but I'll go into that in just a minute. Um, I might draw the rune. I might draw the rune Legus, which is flow, the flow of energy, the flow of your relationship to your path. The idea of that energy needs to be kind of cyclical and it needs to keep on flowing and not become Isa, which is stagnant. And Isa is basically the rune for ice. Lagus is the rune for water, which means it's constantly flowing. There's no torpor or entropy that is suggested in the Isa rune. Now, after I draw that rune, I will write that rune onto one of those pieces of paper that I showed y'all, and I will focus on that rune and also open my mind to Odin so that I may free write whatever comes into my mind, whatever he tells me. Now, in order to be able to free write with a being, with a god, with a spirit, what you have to do, first and foremost, is establish a meditation practice. You don't have to meditate every. I mean, it's very good to meditate every day, but you need to have meditated quite a bit in order to discern what thoughts are from you that are bubbling up in your mind from the thoughts that come from a God, spirit, or being. And it's after years of meditating, I have come to this state where okay, I realize that's coming just from my mind, and then oh, this thought didn't originate from me. It's something that's coming into my mind from Odin, for instance. And a really good meditative practice in order to cultivate this ability is to basically sit in a meditation pose, however you like, as long as your spine is straight, as long as you can connect two of your fingers, and as long as you are able to breathe deeply and evenly. And what you need to do is close your eyes and you need to imagine this bubble in your brain. And every time a thought comes into your mind, you need to be able to breathe in and expand that bubble just a little bit more and shove that thought outward and not let it come into your mental space. So once you have this bubble and you practice this at least five minutes a day for a few weeks, this will be enough. More than 5 minutes is good, but you need to constantly, every time you feel a thought coming in, you kind of breathe in and shove it out. Even when you breathe out, you need to be able to expand that bubble, imagine it expanding as well, to where nothing can come into that bubble, nothing can come into your mental space. And once you have that down to where you can actually control your thoughts, then it's far easier to be a receptacle for the thoughts that are coming from a different being. We both agree that meditation itself is a wonderful tool for anything. It's a wonderful preparatory tool. It's a wonderful tool, in a spiritual practice, and it's wonderful at any stage of a practice you're trying to do. I would say that I might do those practices every day. But it's very important to keep that root in mind when you're working with a particular being, as far as my practice is concerned. And sometimes when I'm focusing on the statue of Odin, I will focus on it with my eyes, and then I will put my body into the form of that rune. So if it's Algiz, the rune of protection, the rune of protection from the universe, I might say Algiz, and basically splay my arms up, because this is a rune for Algiz, with the middle part being my head, of course. And then I'll say Algiz and come back to my center, Algiz. Come back to my center, Algiz. And you can do it as many times as you need to in order to calm yourself, focus yourself, and focus on that rune. And you should be picturing it mentally. I would say that when it comes to spiritual practices in relation to divination or scrying, of course, runes are a great method. Elder Futhark is what I use, but also, like we talked about before, obsidian mirrors or obsidian objects that you can focus in on. Some people focus on a candle. Some people focus on the base of a candle and just stare at it without losing a point of focus in that candle. And you try to stare at it for many minutes at a time, and you try to really ask a question that comes up in your head and ask it over and over and over again while staring at a particular part, a very particular molecule of that candle. And then the information, the energy, the candle can be a gateway to that. But when it comes to divination mirrors, or scrying mirrors, if you will, you need to be able to have no reflection on it, usually, in my understanding. You need to be able to have a dark room to where you're not going to see a reflection on the surface, or you position it so that you see no reflection if it's kind of angled in a certain way. And then when you stare into the scrying mirror, you need to have a question in your mind. You need to have an intent for what you want to see, so that it can be answered. But you might have to stare into a mirror for you might have to stare for 20 minutes, the first few times that you do it, but it'll get easier and easier to either see visions upon it or for thoughts to come into your head through that question being scried upon the mirror. But before I go any further, I think I should go ahead and toss it over to you, Phoenix, and maybe you can enlighten us on how to keep on the spiritual practice or get back on when you fall off, because I haven't fallen off for a long time, but when I have fallen off, it's the emptiness that I have in me that needs to be filled, that needs to be satisfied, and that has always driven me back into the path that I'm on, and that feeling of lack of meaning always brings me back to the path. And I don't know, maybe you felt that way too, but go ahead and dive into these topics.
So what I was taught, and I've fallen off the awareness meditation. I use the Headspace app. I have been doing other meditations, and I justified it to myself a while, which is okay. That I'm still doing meditation, that's okay. But for me, and what they have taught me, is you might miss a day or two or more. It's to gently bring yourself back to that. Not worry about it too much, just always come back to it. Like if you use awareness meditation and you're not necessarily pushing thoughts out, you allow them to come and go. You just don't get caught up in them. You focus on your breath. They're a single focus point. If you get caught up, you go back to the breath, counting, allowing it to pass, and just observing the breath. And it's kind of the same way for coming back. To not fall off, keep a calendar. Like the Headspace app will let you know how many days in a row you meditated. Share that. Keep people up to date with what's going on. Maybe have people keep you accountable or whatever, however you want to do it. Just find a way. For me, what I find that works is I just get that determination and just stick with it and just ingrain that as long as I can and grind it out and just continue working with it. Like tonight I was offering to my gods and goddesses. I'll be making a video on that shortly. We talked about that a little. Stuff like that, just daily bringing yourself back to it. And then after, I think it's 30 days, it becomes a habit. 60 days, it becomes more ingrained. And 90 days, it's just stuck with you. something along those lines. But 67 days is where it starts to ingrain, and it's easier to stick with it. So if you keep up with it for 67 days straight, or 66, whatever it is, and then on the 90th day, it's set. And, even if you fall off after that, you come back to it.
It becomes a kind of something. I think that you really
It
realize
becomes
how much a
hardwired.
spiritual practice is vital to you when you start to actually look forward to doing it. It doesn't at first. It might be hard. You might say, "Oh, I have to go home and I have to meditate. Oh, I'd rather not do that, or I have to go home and make offerings, or I have to try to communicate with my gods or beings." But then eventually, it becomes something that you look forward to. Like, oh, I get to go home and do this. That's amazing. And I think for me, I know that a spiritual practice is working, that it's beneficial to me, and that it's valuable and actually making changes in my life when I'm looking forward to it. And then when I start seeing results, I'll bring it back to the free writing thing since I've talked about that. When I start seeing results or information that is in no other book on Odin or no other information I would have taken in, and I'm constantly writing based on what's coming into my head, and I'm seeing the results from contacting this being, that makes me want to do it again. It makes me feel like, what I'm doing is working, so I need to keep on working at it. Um, for you, do you have any, I guess you could say, spiritual techniques that you do every day apart from meditation, as far as something that you would recommend, either to do with sigils, to do with anything to do with candles, or anything like that?
Not necessarily daily with candles. I try and always make a habit, at least every few days, to work with sigils or to scry into spirit sigils, or like my pendant I got from Elegant AF. I'm sure people have seen their Facebook ads. It's a dragon phoenix. On the back, it's pure obsidian. I always try and cleanse this. I let the reflective surface be there. Some people say it needs to be reflective, but you don't need to have a reflection, or you don't want it, or you can, you can't. I often look into this as divination, pendulums. I've been trying to astral project lately. That's one thing I'm really trying to stay on as well. I have several, and I'll kind of switch between throughout the days or do multiple in each day.
And I would say it is good to carry something like that with you, because once something becomes a talisman or something that's intrinsic to your path and you carry it, then throughout your day you're reminded of it, because either it's in your pocket, either it's around your neck, and that's me with either runes, or kind of amulets for gods or beings, like this Valknut that I dedicated to Odin that I carry around, and servitors as well. When I'm working with a servitor, and okay, I need protection. I'll carry a particular servitor that I've made, and then not only am I reminded of it, but it turns out that day I'm very protected emotionally, mentally, physically, and I start to see a relationship blooming with a servitor, especially if I keep on feeding it, especially if it's just after I started and I'm focused on it. And then after a while, it becomes a sure thing talisman. I know that you have some practices that you use paper and fold it away from yourself if somebody's messing with you. Do you have a particular kind of like pad that you keep in your pocket, or is it just kind of any paper that you write upon?
For me, I try and get it away from me, or if I'm bringing something towards me, and then I burn it. I mentioned this last time we tried to shoot this video before we had a technical difficulties. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
I had actually forgotten about it. There was this last time it was a girl, and she was pagan, and I want to talk to her, learn from her a bit. And I think she's either drunk or high out of her mind. Not my type, first of all. Second of all, she's married, trying to hit on me. Tried to kiss me while I'm at work, ringing her up, and it's just like, no. And so I thought, okay, she's a witch, and I don't really want to communicate with her, which I don't plan to. And I gave her the number I have on my app in case I don't want people having my number. I can change the number.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a Wi-Fi based free phone number you can call and text from. So I changed that, and I wrote the symbol for Saturn and Mars, attached them together. I didn't know her name, so I wrote whatever I knew her by, folded it away from me 3 times, and tore it up and threw it in a trash can and forgot about it. And she didn't fuck with me. I've also done that with people at work and burnt it and other things alike. And the symbolism there is used 3 times, or however many times you fold it away, depending on the numbers, there's different correspondence. But folding it away, you're pushing that away, and then you burn it, bury it, whatever, and you keep it away from yourself. And Saturn and Mars, binding. Like the first video we did, I talked about day of Saturn, hour of Mars. So both bind and take them away. Or you can use Saturn, Mars, and Venus, bring forth someone's love or favorite. It doesn't have to be sexual or romantic towards you, and you keep that in your pocket and then burn it or whatever.
Do you find that either attraction spells or bindings work best for you, or do you think that defense/offense work better for you? Because I know that I specialize in defense. I don't curse a lot of people. I specialize in protection. But as far as your own practice, would you say that a lot of your defensive stuff works that you do all the time, or more of your offensive, or maybe it's the same both ways?
I do more love work because there's someone I have in mind. I know they're the right person. And I've learned I'm doing a little bit too much and I'm too attached. And I thought, okay, each work I do, I get more and more detached. So I'll do a whole video on that later, but it depends entirely on how attached I am to it. Like I did a Mercury thing and people only speak highly of me. And it's kind of wearing off a little bit, not too much. Use that. Or I've used things for defense. I'm more detached from it because at the end of the day, I'm going to protect myself no matter what. But certain other love things, like to bring forth a girl I wasn't really attached to in a sexual way, I didn't end up doing anything with that because I realized some stuff, but I wasn't too attached. So it entirely depends on how much I am attached to it.
So it depends more on situation rather than technique, or rather than particular.
Right.
Completely depends on your situation, basically.
Essentially, yes. And that goes with anything. I'm still new, experimenting and stuff alike. But I've always noticed the time I forget about it, it doesn't even have to be detached. Or even if I'm thinking about it, I think EA called it the rapture state. You know what I'm talking about? Where you just kind of just have faith in it in a sense. And you always do, but you just don't think about it too much. It comes up, it's working. That's when it starts to really just wing up. Or if you just get it out of your mind, it just, boom, it's there kind of thing. So it depends entirely on that. Meditation is probably my best practice right now.
And yeah, I would say meditation is the most beneficial. And when it comes to, I guess the two main points when it comes to magic is it's all about intention and the belief in yourself. Because your magic just isn't going to work unless you have belief in yourself. But it's also about the intensity of your intentions. Would you agree with that?
Yes, yes. Like I performed the Mighty Rite of Jupiter, and my intention was very strong. My will was very strong. My desire was strong, but not as attached. And you saw the pictures. You saw how powerful it was. It was a very powerful written spell, or working, if you will. But it was the fact that I wasn't too attached to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because there is a level of, because for a lot of spells you want to forget it. You want to put all your intention into it and then just burn it, bury it, and then forget it, and forget it as much as possible because it's hard for a lot of people. But then you see it manifest more when you assume that it's going to work. And I think that has to do a lot with forgetting, is that you have to assume that it's going to work, and then when you do fully and you don't question it, then it's more likely to work. So I would say, just in closing, is there any recommendations you want to make? And would you say that, I wouldn't recommend this? Perhaps the recommendation is something you wouldn't recommend.
Mm, not off the top of my head. I wouldn't recommend doing something against your own conscience. That's the only thing I can think of. Your spirit, your God, whatever you feel you shouldn't do. And if you're confused about it, maybe something's trying to keep you from it. But if it doesn't agree with your own consciousness, I advise against it.
That makes sense. All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, Phoenix, for joining me on the
Thank you.
channel. Once again, if you want to say your channel name, that will be up and running pretty soon, I imagine.
It's up and running. I just don't have any videos up yet. It is Phoenix Mystic.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. If any of you out there have any
Thank you.
questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below. We'll both take a look and see what we can answer. Anyway, I hope all of you have a great day, and hope to see all of you on the channel in the future.